Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Knoll, and welcome back once again to another edition of the Movie Battleground. Tonight, we have an awesome matchup that follows. It's kind of a second part to a match we had a few weeks ago. Following the first title match, obviously, there was the number one contenders match between myself and Jay. And then we also had that other little set of players in the background who would go on to play the champion in the summer. And we already had the first match. We had Madeeh Raymond taking on Shaun Hunter. And in what was a very close match, Shaun Hunter pulls out that victory, getting his first win over a, quote unquote, elite competitor. But he'll have another one potentially in his tracks, as we have the inverse of that match tonight between Dr. Spaceman, Alan Shepard, and Chadwick Webb. Chad, similarly to Shaun, is also a rookie who's come in and had a couple of really good, solid wins. With just that one unfortunate loss to former champion Joe Fairley on his record. Alan, on the other side of things, is a older competitor who came in a little later than everybody else, but he's had two very impressive wins back-to-back to put him in this position. So it's going to be interesting to see who can pull it out. Is Alan's dumb luck better to him than Chad's determination to succeed? We will find out. But let's go ahead and bring in the competitors. Introducing first, with a record of 3 wins, 1 defeat, he is Chad Webb. Chad, welcome back, sir. How's it going?
Hey, it's going great. I'm pretty excited for this one. Alan's a chill guy. I've watched his matches. I love the way he argues. It's just very chill, but he's always bringing the points. I love the questions for this match. All the choices are pretty fun. So, excited to get into this one.
Absolutely. And I know your big thing when you came into this, once you got a taste of it, you got that first win, your determination was to want to make it far. And obviously, going up against Joe, up until Henry, nobody could make it past Joe. It took somebody with the experience of Henry to make it past Joe. But I know that loss, the way it went down, stung you a little harder than I think you would have wanted it to. So coming off the back of a win following that match, is that determination to push to get back to that top spot still there, or is there something else that's kind of driving you here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the loss, to Joe was pretty crushing, because I had such a momentum going forward with that one, and that one was just a slap down. But then right after that, winning against JPO was big confidence boost. Yeah, I would love to go on, but you keep going on and going on, and you just keep playing better and better people. And Alan's no different. I'm not treating him any differently than I would any other competitor. Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm approaching it. If I take the win, I take the win. If I take the L, I take the L, and then I go on to play someone else. So that's kind of my approach. We'll see how it goes.
It's a good approach, sir. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and send you into the back to introduce your opponent. Entering with a record of 2 wins, no defeats, he is the residential Dr. Spaceman. He is Alan Shepard. Alan, welcome back, sir. Off the back of 2 very, very impressive wins, both of which saw you get pushed to the blind round in order to pull out that victory. One of whom against a competitor that Chad is very friendly with in Will Cohen. So maybe a little bit of, definitely. I know the 2 of them have had their own battles, and they've become very friendly over the course of those battles. So, what's kind of your headspace coming into this, undefeated, looking to get that next win?
Well, aloha, everybody. My headspace is always in the same spot. I'm just looking to have fun with a group of people that I, can't help but love. And Chad is no different. He's probably, I'd say, of all the people in the community, he's one of the nicest guys out there. That doesn't mean he's not a fierce competitor, because he is, but seriously is a nice guy. Always got good takes on things, and just always pleasant, always looking for the positive side, which I kind of like to call myself that too. Always looking to have fun. We just all enjoy this stuff. We enjoy the debates. We enjoy these movies, and let's have a good time. That's where my headspace is always.
Absolutely. And then I have one more question for you before you get started. As we called out last time, in both of these matches, the competitors have been tough enough that you've been pushed to the blind round. In both of those times, you have come out victorious, which, I mean, statistically, every time we do it, one person wins, one person loses. But even the best of the competitors are 50-50 when it comes to it. Is losing better than having to play the blind round again?
That's a very good question because that blind round is no fun, really, to be honest with you. I don't. But then again, I don't know. Sometimes it's fun. I like this spur of the moment, thinking off the top. Not planning for anything. I kind of like doing that too. So we'll see. If I got to take the loss, who better to do it than against Chad? But at the same time, if we got to go to the blind round, that's my fate. I guess that's the way I'll call myself a blind round guy from now on.
Absolutely. Well, I'll go ahead and bring Chad in, guys. Let's go ahead and get into this. Movie Battleground is a game that is a best of 5 rounds. It is a first to 3 points wins. Each round of debate is worth 1 point. The first person to get 3 points in a row, if that happens, will be a victory by knockout. And as we just discussed, if it is a 2-2 tie after 4 rounds, we will go on to the blind round. In terms of how the main rounds of debate work, the competitors were given the questions ahead of time. They've had a chance to prep their answers and put counter arguments together as well. They will each get 60 seconds to open their argument. That will be followed by 2 minutes of rebuttal time where they can discuss and rebut anything that they would like. That will have a 4-minute open discussion where they will get to go back and forth and get in as many points as possible, followed by a 60-second closing argument. Following this, I do have 3 judges in the background in Brian Nussbaum, Chris Diaz, and Sean Sandberg. I will bring them on screen at that point, which, based on what was said in the argument, they will decide who is the winner. With all that said, guys, are we ready to go?
Yep.
Ready.
All right. Let's go ahead and get into this. And we're going to begin tonight's Movie Battleground by talking about somebody who was in the limelight for a very long time, but has now been out of the limelight for the last few years. An actress by the name of Emma Watson. Now, obviously, she is known for one very, very big thing, but over the last 10 years or so, she's put together quite a decent filmography of good performances in other projects as well. She's done things like The Bling Ring. She's done Little Women. She even had a supporting role in This Is the End. I mean, say what you will about Beauty and the Beast, but she was in that, and she did auto-tune the hell out of it. But over the last couple of years, she hasn't really worked to the point where people assume that she had retired from acting, which she has come out to say is not true. She has just chosen to take an extended period off from working because of the pandemic. So with that said, her filmography is pretty much on hold at this point, and it is solidified for the moment. So there's never a better time than to ask the question, what is the best Emma Watson film? And if you're wondering why I listed so many different films that weren't from that one particular thing, well, you'll find out in a minute. With that said, though, Alan, because you are currently undefeated, you were deemed the favorite in this match. You had the choice of which questions you wanted to go first on. You are going first on 2 and 4, which means, Chad, you will be going first on this question as well as question 3. As I go ahead and bring up your timer for you guys, slowly but surely. There it is. All right, as I go ahead and bring that up for you guys, Chad, your time will begin when you begin speaking.
Emma Watson is a great actress. She has given outstanding performances in many films like The Perks of Being a Wallflower and Little Women, but she will most likely always be known for playing the great, incomparable Hermione Granger in the Harry Potter franchise. It was slow going for a lot of the child actors in the Harry Potter franchise to grow up and find their voices after starting out at 11 years old. But once you started to get towards the middle and towards the end of that franchise, these were not young, immature actors anymore. These were great actors giving deep, emotional performances worthy of Oscar attention. The best Emma Watson movie is obvious. It's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. It's a great film, bridging the gap between Dumbledore's death and the epic conclusion. It is Emma Watson's movie. This is the film where we get to see Emma Watson's range of emotion as an actor and see her come to the forefront and shine as the lovable hero, Hermione Granger. And I cede my time.
All right. So we have Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 up first. Alan, time starts when you begin speaking for your film.
All right. When we're talking about Emma Watson, I must admit, I hate to start these things with a negative. She's never been my favorite actress. She's been in a lot of movies, decent performances in some, and also in some real stinkers. She stank, but it wasn't quite her fault because the whole movie stank. Noah, The Circle, come on. Those are ridiculous films. And then she didn't make them any better. She didn't elevate it at all. But she elevated a lot of the series of films that we've been talking about. and that is the Harry Potter. But I went the opposite route as Chad. I went to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the very first Emma Watson performance. She really showed everything that she could do, especially as a child actress. She really elevated that movie and created a character that everyone will love and know for all time. She literally fleshed out this character that we've been reading about and made it somebody that we cannot live without. And we follow her journey through all the films. But I think she shows the most depth in creating that character in the very first Harry Potter film, The Sorcerer's Stone. And I'll concede my 3, 2, 1. There you go.
Of all the Emma Watson films I named, how could I forget the fucking classic that is The Circle? My God. These movies are certainly better than that one. With that said, Chad, back to you. Deathly Hallows Part 1 when you begin speaking.
Yeah, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone did, in fact, set up Hermione's character and gave us some fun Hermione quotes. But she was still so young, we didn't get the rich, mature acting from Emma that we got later. It's immature, and she falls into the ensemble, frankly. That film was mostly focused on world building, establishing the characters, and, more stuff like that than focusing on like story and character. You want to watch the performances of the adults in that movie more than you want to watch the kids. The movie also just focused so much on staying true to the book instead of actually trying to like be like a film. Deathly Hallows Part 1 begins with Hermione. We see her pain with having to wipe her parents' memories and carry that weight on her shoulders throughout the entire film, as she shows us with her body language and her facial expressions, not just with her words. Then in contrast, we get to see the lighter side of Hermione as she dances with Harry in the tent, trying to keep her spirits up in such a dark time as to not lose sight of hope, to have that like subtle, bit of like happiness while also like, you can see that she knows that they're still in dark times. So it's muted. And little baby Emma Watson just didn't have the acting chops to show stuff like that, all that emotion. We get to see her stand up, to snatchers, Minister of Magic, assert herself as the dominance of a leader. And then, all the dominance is mixed with the sadness and fear is delivered with the subtlety, like I said. In Deathly Hallows Part 1, our heroes have to leave the school they love and venture into the unknown as a metaphor of how a person is often lost in young adulthood, trying to figure out, the world and find their voices. They experience confusion, frustration, and challenges along the way, but Hermione is there to lead her troop wherever they need to go to accomplish their mission. Sorcerer's Stone sidelines Emma Watson a lot and Hermione. It's a lot focused on Harry because he's the main character. But Deathly Hallows Part 1, she is the leader. This is the film where she shines, and it's just a great film overall.
And time. All right, Alan, back over to you.
That was actually a really good argument and a really good kind of summation of Daniel Radcliffe that Chad just gave there. I think all that is true for Daniel Radcliffe. I think he grew in all those ways, and the movie focuses a lot more, Deathly Hallows Part 1, on Harry and Voldemort more so. Yes, that is a beautiful, amazing opening that Hermione has in that beginning of that film, but then she kind of plays a one note the rest of the way, and that's really the problem with Hermione as a character through the whole rest of the series. She doesn't really play more than one or two notes. She's always the kind of the whiny, I'm so disappointed in everyone because they're not as smart as me, they're not as good as me, and it kind of grows tiresome throughout this series. That's why I chose the first one, because we really see all of the things that make Hermione great in that first film. Her joy of being the smartest person there, her discovery of all these things that she gets to experience in Hogwarts, her making the friends, the relationship she has with each one of the classmates in the ensemble there. She kind of falls into the ensemble in other films, but in that first movie, she steals every scene with those three, with that trio, and with a lot of the other students in the Sorcerer's Stone. And we get to see a lot more joy and discovery, which is things I think we miss in especially Deathly Hallows Part 1, because we only see real one moment of joy that she has. That is that dancing scene. But I think we see the progression of her character arc more in Daniel Radcliffe in that dancing scene. And she just has a snippet of, okay, you pulled me out of this, but I'm going to go right back to that dyer. When we see the discovery in Harry in the Sorcerer's Stone, we actually see that discovery and it stays with her. You know why she loves being there and why she loves her friends and helping them out. I think we see a much more broader character arc in Sorcerer's Stone than we do in the rest of the Harry Potter series.
And time. All right, we're going to go ahead and head into the 4-minute open discussion. As a reminder, gentlemen, obviously make as many points as you can, but also be respectful of each other's time. It will begin ticking when the first person speaks.
Honestly, I just got to say, like, you know, with everything you're saying about her one-note performance, I seriously thought you were just describing Sorcerer's Stone the whole time. You know, I understand you're talking about a lot of the joy and stuff like that. I think that's great. But, like, a lot of the times Hermione can be very grating in Sorcerer's Stone. She can be very that know-it-all character that, you know, not everybody really likes. And it's just like she has, like, the two notes that's just, or, you know, the one note that's just like, you know, it's this. And then, like, you know, be careful, Harry. Like, those are the two things that we get from her. With everything in Deathly Hallows Part 1, where you say it's like, you know, one note, it's just like brilliant, subtle acting when I watch it, because we get to see how much she's grown since the first film.
Well, I think in relation to fear, that we see a much broader character arc in Sorcerer's Stone, because she has different levels of fear. What makes her afraid? She's fear of letting down the teachers, fear of letting down her friends, the fear of the ultimate, you know, Voldemort being around, whatever's happening with Harry and whatever's happening with Quirrell. We get to see these different levels of fear. In Part 1 of Deathly Hallows, it's more sadness, apathy, and she's just very, very tired. And we see different kind of levels of the same, oh, I'm so tired and I'm so weary. No longer afraid, there's no discovery, I think. And I think that's what makes Sorcerer's Stone so interesting in her performance, is you're seeing her discover everything that we're going to, as an audience, go on this journey with her for the rest of the series. And by Part 1, it's really cumbersome and weary to see all of that just dread, continuous one-note dread, and we miss out on the discovery that's so exciting in Sorcerer's Stone Part 1. And that's why all her quotes are so memorable. A lesser child actor wouldn't have made those quotes so interesting, would have made those lines so interesting. And we quote them all the time because we see that this young actor discovering these things, making these discoveries, whether it's, you know, the love she has for things, the joy she has for things, and the fear she has for things.
You get that with Hermione throughout the whole thing, up until we start to get to some of these more mature films where you get to actually see her branch out and like challenge herself as an actress. You know, she has to go along this journey with these and carry the film, because Harry and Ron are just basically dragged along this whole time. They're the weary one. She's the one that has to have this like strong, you know, affect to her, where she has to be brave for her two friends. And she's like, I'm the one that is always carrying these kids with me. I'm the one who knows everything. I'm the one who is prepared and planned and all this stuff. She has to carry all that emotion deep within her. And she shows that in spades in Deathly Hallows Part 1. Like, her torture scene at the end is just so, you know, blood-curdlingly scary because of the way that she, you know, handles it. And, you know, there's just a lot of depth she's given this, when she has to like feel strong for Harry when he goes to the graveyard to see his parents. She does the wreath for him. You know, she does a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff happens in this movie that's really fantastic. Whereas Sorcerer's Stone spends a lot more time, like I said, on world building and other characters. Like, you talk a lot about the Hermione quotes and stuff, and it's just, you know, I need more than just fun little quotes about, you know, world building, where you also get a lot of great quotes from other characters in that too. Like, you're a wizard, Harry. It's not just Hermione in that movie, whereas Deathly Hallows is all Hermione. It rests on her shoulders.
Well, she in the scenes of the graveyard, where she's helping Harry by making the wreath. I mean, we see empathy in her eyes, but that's it. It's still in that same kind of the resting bitch face, if you would, that she just looks sour and dour, and she's doing physical things, but in her face, you're not seeing the joy and the discovery that you see throughout Sorcerer's Stone. Just a lot more discovery in each aspect and each emotion.
If it's just joy, and that's still one note.
All right, we're going to go on to the 1 minute closings. Chad, you are up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
All the other Harry Potter films focused on other characters, especially Harry Potter, but Deathly Hallows Part 1 focused on Hermione, lifted her up as a main character, and gave Emma Watson the vehicle she needed to show the world what she was capable of. This film, we get to see all of these lost souls, going through the wilderness, trying to find something out there that, they were never given. And that's where you get to see certain arcs come to fruition, where you get to see that Dumbledore set up all of the clues for them to find. And it's Hermione is the one that's finding all of these clues, and she gets so excited every time that she finds one. She's like, it's just logical. I'm very logical. And, so Alan, painting her as one note in the movie, I just think is so off. It's just such a deep performance. And I think just because it's subtle and not showy, like in Sorcerer's Stone, it's still a very mature, deep, profound performance by Emma Watson. It really shows her range as an actress.
And time. All right, we are going to move over to Alan for the final minute of the round when you begin speaking.
I think when you're going on a journey with a character, it's important that you're feeling everything they're feeling, and it's good enough. The performance is good enough that it actually takes you on that journey. There's a reason that we love Hermione so much in Sorcerer's Stone, is because she, as that young actor, was able to take us on the journey, whether it was feeling joy, feeling discovery, feeling fear, feeling empathy for her friends, whatever it was. It was right there with, we were right there with her. We were taking that journey with her. And I think that's the important part of any performance for an actor, and especially in any film, is taking the audience on the journey, making those discoveries. There was a lot of one-note pony tricks that Hermione was left to do in Part 1 because we had seen all of those things she had done in previous films. But Sorcerer's Stone really set that up. It really said, okay, this is an actor that can handle this performance, steal these scenes, and take us on this journey for the next wave of films. You wouldn't have had that had you not met her and went with her in Sorcerer's Stone.
And time. All right, guys, a very solid first debate to start this one off. I'm going to go ahead and send you both into the back while I bring the judges into the call. There's not really a lot to fact check here, so I'm just going to turn it around to the judges. Brian, you are up first, sir. As concise as you can hit it for me, who gets your vote and what was the main selling point?
My pick is Chad. He sold me on how Deathly Hallows Part was all her range, and the arguments he brought forth, Chad was my point.
All right, Diaz, down to you, sir. Who gets your vote and what was the main thing that sold you?
This is tough, right, coming from a Harry Potter fan, but I think Chad pulled it out in the end. He does pull a damper the opening and a little damper. Alan does focus on an actress, the quotable, but I didn't hear enough from him. I heard more for Chad's damper for the film Shout. And the betrayed cheese, stuff he mentioned, won me over in the end.
All right, well, judges, thank you guys so much. I will go ahead and sit you in the back. Sean, I look forward to hearing from you next round, sir. Here, how about this? Why don't you just tell us?
I had so many notes.
How about this? I will give you 5 minutes in the background, edit it out later, just to tell them why they picked the wrong Harry Potter movie. You can do
No, it wasn't that, but yeah, we'll later.
All right, send you to the back, guys. Bring back in the competitors.
Oh, that was
we'll
a tough
go
round.
ahead and move into question number 2.
You're the man.
You brought it.
And
You brought it, brother. Good job.
question number 2. I'd feel like a dick if I tried cutting you guys off while you're being nice. So question number 2 relates back to another big franchise in the world, although one that is succeeding much more than Wizarding World right now at the moment, unfortunately. And that is the Monsterverse. Now, because of the pandemic and then licensing rights slipping, The films have been coming less and less than they were before, but we have seen a lot of movement begin. We've heard rumors that the licensing agreement is back on, that they've set a new deal to be able to continue making films off of the success of Godzilla vs. Kong. We've heard that apparently they want to bring the director of that film, Adam Wingard, back into the fold. There's been rumors that maybe Jordan Vogt Roberts, who directed Kong Skull Island, could be brought back into the fold. And the writer of the series very recently, Max Borenstein, who's contributed to the scripts of all 4 films, spoke about how his eventual goal is to try and make something with as minimal humans as possible, which I'm sure would appeal to a lot of people's senses. He compared it to a Mad Max Fury Road type of undertaking with minimal dialogue and all of this. So if they can continue to make movies, maybe they will get to that point, which would be an interesting pick. But instead, let's focus on a decade that's not often talked about when it comes to these types of films. The question is, what is the best MonsterVerse film of the 2000s? And as a reminder for people who don't know, here at Battleground, the MonsterVerse is the name of the new franchise that is the amalgamation of Kong and Godzilla. So historically, anything that features King Kong or Godzilla is applicable to this question. So what is the best one that came out in the 2000s? Alan, I will bring the timer back in for you, and you can begin speaking, sir, when you are ready.
All right. I just got to say, win or lose, I don't care. All I'm excited about is I get to talk about this movie, one of my favorite films of all time. I grew up with the Godzilla films. My third word in life was Godzilla. No joke, no lie. You can't check the tape because I'm too old. There was no tape back then. But but I love me some Godzilla movies, and this, the ultimate one, 2001's GMK, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant All-Out Monster Attack. A beautiful title, a long title for an epic film. Godzilla fans, what we wanted, we loved, when all of these kaiju, all of these monsters came into one film. And you've got in this movie your 3 big hitters. You've got Godzilla, of course, King. You've got Mothra and King Ghidorah. And a beautiful story that makes Godzilla threatening again. He's not a family-friendly guy. He's, again, an evil monster, and we've got to use the guardian monsters to help take him out. And he's threatening and beautiful and menacing, and the special effects are incredible. It's one of the best kaiju movies, and I think the definite best within the 2000s, hands down.
And time. So hold on, just for clarification, you're telling me that there is a movie out there with Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah that doesn't have Millie Bobby Brown and Friday Night Lights as the stars?
Yes, I am saying it. The first one, the greatest.
All right, Chad, that might be some competition, sir. What are you bringing to the table? 1 minute on the clock.
In 2005, the great Peter Jackson was hot off releasing 3 phenomenal Lord of the Rings movies back to back to back. After making one of the greatest book-to-film adaptations ever made, he decided to make one of the greatest remakes of a classic film. I'm talking about King Kong 2005. The classic King Kong was a masterclass in its technical achievements, but there was so much of it couldn't achieve due to its time and technical limitations. Peter Jackson made King Kong into a period piece epic. Not only does it deliver on the thrills and excitement you would expect from a big monster movie, but it also delivers on the story, the character development, the feel, the catharsis, the messaging. King Kong 2005 was able to make Kong into an actual character you could feel for, a monster that you could love and show he's not a monster at all, just a lonely soul who has lost everything. But then you have themes of humanity's destruction of nature and their need to exploit everything and anything for profit instead of just letting things be. The look, the feel, the pacing, the casting, the score, and overall vibe of this movie is just all excellent.
And time. All right, so we got a Godzilla versus King Kong battle of our own. Alan, back over to you, sir. 2 minutes.
GMK is so beautiful because we get a director who, of giant kaiju and Japanese films, you wouldn't have thought would have jumped into this fold with the Godzilla, with the King, because he was so renowned with Gamera, the other lesser known kaiju, but he made this beautiful visual style, using the man in suit, the special effects, but bringing him to that you can't really tell, starting with the digital effects, what's going to be digital, what's going to be real. He brought real visceral filmmaking to this very hand motion camera act to this type of film, this type of kaiju movie, putting you right there with it. And the action scenes, the monster fights, which you all would come to see this thing, is for that. And the story, leading it back to Earth, back to the planet, and the planet wanting to take care of this bane on existence, what man's inhumanity to man's bringing something, a weapon of mass destruction to threaten all of it, the Earth fighting back, coming back and saying, look, we're not going to tolerate this anymore, and we're going to take out this giant evil monster. Peter Jackson, King Kong, oh my goodness. The best King Kong story still is always going to be the 1933, the original one. Peter Jackson's a great, fantastic filmmaker, but in his version of King Kong, he shot himself in the foot by doing too much, wanting to do too much, and throwing all of his toys into the playground and saying, look what I can do, look what I can do. And it got too muddled, too crazy, too long. You don't need that long of a film to tell a very simple, poetic, beautiful story that he tried to milk for all purposes and just was a bloated mess of a film. If you want giant monsters fighting, you've got this concise, beautiful, amazing visual film with a nice little story of, hey, the Earth triumphs over man's evilness. Then you got GMK. And it really is one of the most exciting things ever. I'll watch it right now.
Go ahead.
I was just milking the clock.
Hey, if you weren't going to do it, I was. Chad, back over to you for 2 minutes.
I mean, you talk about like the visual style in this being great. You know, you might have a point there, but I think honestly it was kind of trumped a little bit later with Shin Godzilla and like the, you know, innovative kind of not innovative, but like the filmmaking techniques they used in a Godzilla film, like first handheld. The original Godzilla film had some great themes with it, being an allegory to the horrors of atomic bomb dropped on Japan in World War II. But it feels like a lot of the films that followed seemed to have stray away from this core messaging, or just try to repeat it in order to have these larger fights. And I agree with you. I really liked watching the movie. I thought a lot of the fights were really cool. You know, but it's just, there's really not as much like character moments and story in it. They really tried to like shove in kind of some messaging towards the end there, but there was really no weight to it at all. The realism given to the monsters is just really not there. Like you said, it's like people in suits, which, you know, maybe back in the day was really, really cool. But I think in the 2000s, it just kind of looked kind of obvious, even though it was still kind of fun. I'll say. But yeah, it's an unbalanced film because they try to go too hard they don't go hard enough into the camp. They try to balance it with like some other serious stuff, but I feel like you can't go all the way over here that way and then all the way over there that way and it still work. It's just unbalanced. But Peter Jackson's King Kong fully realizes what they sought out to accomplish in the original 1933 film. I think it's due to Peter Jackson loving the original so much, but seeing how the story could be aided in not just updating the visual effects for which it won an Academy Award, but also in telling a more complete story with rich, fully realized characters. You have Naomi Watts, Jack Black, Adrian Brody, a bunch of other people, Andy Serkis as King Kong and acting, which is really great. All these characters have something to do, some sort of arc and or some sort of character development that makes them more than just one note. We get the time given to build this story and epic adventure. The original movie, they're on the boat in like 12 minutes. You don't really get to see their lives leading up to that and really why they would go on the boat at all, stuff like that.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion, gentlemen. The timer will continue ticking when the first person speaks.
The camp was definitely there in GMK, and one of the greatest dark moments of any Godzilla film, the lady who just survived the first attack when Godzilla came up, which was a fantastic reintroduction of the character, him coming out of the water and the way it's filmed, and the music and the Godzilla theme coming, and then him terrorizing and just going through that small fishing village, that small town. And then when she's in the hospital, she thinks she's safe. She sees him through the window, terrified, the way it's filmed, the fear on her face, so scared. And he walks by and then she has that sigh of relief, and then the tail comes and knocks down the building, killing her. One of the greatest dark moments in any of these films, and really had the camp and the ability to make Godzilla scary again, which in the first film is no fun in that movie. It is terrifying. Godzilla is a terrifying allegory, very, very scary. And to bring Godzilla back, because you're right, he got silly after a while. To bring him back to that sense of fear, I thought was a masterstroke. Now, I got to do this. You said it yourself. In the first Kong movie, 12-minute boat ride, we get what's going on. We understand. We are built up for all these characters that really we care nothing about. Jack Black's character gets sidelined. The whole reason Carl Denham is going to this, all the reasons he's going to do this, is taken away because Peter Jackson wanted Naomi Watts to fall in love with a monkey. A terrible, I never laughed so hard in a movie unintentionally as that scene when he comes out and she's in the car and she comes out of the car and Kong has just escaped from the theater and all this lights and music and looked at this love moment and tried to make this love connection between this supposed to be terrifying, horrible menace. Yes, he's been put into a world he didn't create, but to try to push this love story between Naomi Watts and this gorilla was atrociously ridiculous. And the ice skating scene, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I thought I stepped into a different film. To turn this thing into just such a joke of a thing was just astronomical. And all the characters we've been building up for almost 3 hours, their stories get pushed away. Everybody's gone. Adrian Brody, we don't care about any of that. We're going to focus on this love story, quote unquote. Also, it's that much more tragic when he dies.
I would say
it was just ham-fisted as hell.
Okay, I'm gonna get in there a little bit. You talk about like all these characters kind of getting sidelined. That's not true at all. You said Adrian Brody gets sidelined. Honestly, Adrian Brody has one of the best kind of like arcs in the movie. He thinks his biggest love is theater, and then Jack Black has this brilliant line when he almost jumps off the boat and he says, you don't love the theater. If you did, you would have jumped. And then basically he does jump at the end of the movie when he finds out that the love of his life is Naomi Watts, and he leaves the theater, that the show that he created, to go seek Naomi Watts and make sure that she's okay because she's like up on the tower and stuff. And I didn't expect you to actually go that hard against King Kong, to be honest, of the character, because I don't see how you see that. Because when I watch this movie, I do see a beautiful love story. I don't think it's romantic. I get a beautiful like companionship movie in this. I love
companionship. She's tap dancing for him, and realistically, he's squish, eats. That's it. Well, it's mate, gorilla eats, mates. That's what it wants to do. Character. It's absolutely absurd. It's so absurd.
Rewatch the movie without thinking that it's like so absurd, because if you watch it with an open mind next time, I think you can actually see that this movie developed such a great character in King Kong and the relationship between them. She's out there looking for something to be accepted, because she goes out to give the world her comedy and her acting, but she doesn't really get to show that because they think that I'll get into it later.
And time is up. Very passionate round there. Let's go ahead and get into the closings. Alan, you are up first. 1 minute left on the clock when you begin speaking.
I think GMK sets the expectations of what you want when you're talking about a monster movie. You want giant monsters. You want lots of fun. You want a good story, of course, that you can follow. You want characters you can follow. The reporter, Yuri, in GMK, you're following her story as she's experiencing all of these monsters. The great thing about GMK is that it put a lot of perspective with the camera work into the mind of the people. What would they do if they saw these giant monsters wreaking havoc, and how terrible and terrifying that would be from the perspective of someone watching these things, but still being able to see visually, having not a bunch of quick cuts that makes it all kind of jumpy like the Godzilla King of the Monsters film did. So I really think this, for as far as a big monster movie, lots of giant kaiju, this is what you want. Everything at once, in a story that's exciting, keeps you engaged the whole time, and not an over-bloated mess, which Jackson Kong unfortunately is. I was like to see it, but it failed on all
And
levels.
time. All right, we're going to go into the final minute of the round. Chad, you have it. Time starts when you speak.
Look, I'm glad that Alan really is passionate about Godzilla and loves all these movies, but I feel like it's kind of the same thing in a lot of those movies. That's why people love Shin Godzilla, because it kind of did something fresh for once, after all that time. But yeah, I don't have time to get into all of the arcs that Peter Jackson sets up and completes within the movie, but I do want to push back. He does not sideline Jack Black. Jack Black, is there. He's this kind of like menacing presence throughout the time thing, just like seeing all this tragedy happen, but he's still rolling his camera, and then he's the one that exploits King Kong at the end. But yeah, he totally mischaracterized King Kong and Naomi Watts' character in this movie, because they have like this beautiful relationship, because he is such a lost soul. He's lost everything. He is not this like monster menace. And unfortunately, I think that, if you watch this and you still think he's a menace, I don't understand like what movie you were watching. It was different than the one that I watched, but yeah, he accepts her for who she is when she was thrown away by society, and then she accepts him for who he is as well.
Time. All right, guys, another great round. I'm going to go ahead and sit you both in the back and bring the judges into the call as we go ahead and get into their decisions. We have just a couple of quick fact checks, because unfortunately I could not find the exact specificity of time that it took them to get onto the boat. People don't seem to keep track of those things. But for what it's worth in terms of runtime, the remake of King Kong is 188 minutes long, or 3 hours and 8 minutes. For what it's worth, comparing the original 1933 film is 100 minutes, or comes in at about an hour 40. And the 76 one, which is that one in the middle that's often forgotten by people, is an hour 34. So that comes in at just over 2 hours. So the Jackson one is easily the longest of those ones. But the other thing also was the director was referenced, but the name was never said, so I want to give him his credit. For the director of GMK, it is Shisuke Kaneko, which there's an interesting connection here. He would go on to direct the Japanese live-action adaptation of the book Death Note, which is an interesting connection that he would do Death Note and a Godzilla film as the director of Godzilla vs. Kong. Adam Wingard, previously, prior to that movie, directed the American Netflix adaptation of Death Note, although those two movies have far different receptions. His Godzilla film was much more liked. With that said, Chris, I go to you first. Based on the arguments, who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
This was tough. This was good back and forth, but the end, I just like Alan put a lot more example. While I don't want to think Khan and Naomi Watt and bestiality, Alan just put a lot of example in the movie and barely gave Chad time to rebut.
Absolutely. And while bestiality was not said once during the round, I should just put the thing out there. We do not encourage bestiality. Don't go fuck your dogs. Don't eat your dogs also. Just keep it in your pants. With that said, Shaun, that's a hell of a lead-in, isn't it? I go to you, sir. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah. This was a really tough round to judge, actually, weirdly enough, because the thing is, he did push back on, or Chadwick rather, pushed back on the fact that, it wasn't necessarily a romance thing, and companionship isn't necessarily the same thing as romance, but at the exact same time, I feel like Alan hit a lot of points that were really, really good, especially when it comes to like how bloated the runtime was, how you don't care as much about the characters. This was a phenomenal round. This might have been the best round in terms of debate, like equally when it comes to good points being made, that I've actually had the pleasure of judging. But yeah, for this one, I'd have to go with Alan as well, I think, just by a very narrow margin. But yeah, I think Alan definitely got it on this one.
All right. Well, judges, thank you guys so much once again. I'll go ahead and sit you in the back so you can enjoy the third question of this match while I bring the competitors back in, and we will move
I got to learn to
on
speak up sometimes.
We will move on to questions.
I didn't mean to shout over you, brother. I didn't mean to shout over you. All love, Chad. All love.
And so it was all passion. So
Absolutely. You can't argue the passion. You also theoretically can't argue what his strength was, but that's neither here nor there. We'll go ahead and get into question number 3. And question number 3 is something that we've been doing recently. It is a viewer submitted question. This was a question that actually was not written by me. It was submitted to us by a viewer, a player, a judge, anyone on the outside of the show who would like to see a question they come up with be debated. If you at home or at work or maybe at school or, I don't know, in a public restroom watching this movie Battleground decide, I don't know why you would be, but hey, not everyone has a newspaper. If you decide that you would like to have your question submitted in a Movie Battleground, email me at officialaaronkanoll@gmail.com. Please make sure your name is included in the document or the email at some point, because if I do not know who sent me these questions, I'm not asking them because I don't want there to be any chance that you get your own questions. But if you are a competitor, a viewer, a judge, or anything in between, and you would like to see something discussed on Movie Battleground that maybe I've never thought of, go ahead and send it in because I will absolutely bring it on. And speaking of somebody I referenced earlier, because one of you played him and the other one's friends with him, this question is brought to you by Will Cohen. And the question is, what movie would be made better if it were remade featuring Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman in the leading or major supporting roles? Now, I did adjust the wording a little bit to open it up for you guys, but as with all casting questions on the show, this is all time. There's no restrictions in terms of age. You can't turn around and say, well, Ryan Reynolds would have been 8 when that movie was made, so that wouldn't work. You can pick any movie from any time period. You are putting the 2 best versions of these guys into that film, and why would it make it better? And we've had a couple of these casting questions before on the show, but never a duo. And if there's any duo to pick in modern Hollywood, this is certainly one of them, especially because as far as I'm aware, they actually haven't done a movie together outside of the archival cameo that Logan had in Deadpool 2. I don't believe these two have ever actually been in a movie together. So which one would be the perfect one? Chad, you are up first on this round, so I will bring the timer up for you, and it will begin ticking when you start speaking, sir.
Yeah. What is a movie that is bad but has enough potential to be good when you change the lead actors? Maybe some other stuff about it. I believe a great answer to that is 1999's Wild Wild West. Now, I am not throwing shade at Kevin Kline and Will Smith. They are both great and charming most of the time, even if half of them do get a little slappy at times. In this movie, they were the weakest link. Thus, I think a change in casting with this film in the modern era has the potential to make, or even really back in that time, if you wanted to remake it then, has the potential to make a really great film out of a Wild Wild West remake. This remake would have Hugh Jackman replacing Kevin Kline and Ryan Reynolds replacing Will Smith. The reason this would work is that there's source material to pull from. Hugh and Ryan can update the humor to not be problematic, can be kind of meta, just like Deadpool. They would have great chemistry, and Wild Wild West just could have been so great, and a lot of potential is wasted there. Speaking of, like, because you can pull from the source material.
All right, and that is time. And one of our judges, Chris, in the back, did share via whiteboard that they are technically in Free Guy Together as well, but that's also a really, really small cameo that most people probably didn't even realize was Hugh Jackman. So they still really haven't done anything together. With that said, Alan, you are up next, sir. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I chose a very bad movie. And I had to narrow down why it was so bad. And I had to watch this thing more than once because somebody else in another battle that I had argued for it. And I was very, oh, come on, what are you doing? But it made me down a rabbit hole. And I started analyzing why I hate this movie so much. And it was because of the 2 leads and that they just didn't want to be there. And that was the Kevin Smith cop-out. Kevin Smith directed Cop-Out. And Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan did not want to be there. So I thought, hey, what a great movie to put these two, to put Ryan Reynolds in the Tracy Morgan role, the wisecracking, role, and then Hugh Jackman as the more straightforward, tough as nails cop. We've definitely seen both of these guys do those roles before, and I think they would have elevated that film because they would have wanted to be there. It could have elevated a film that to a higher level with their performance specifically, because that was the big problem with that movie, with those 2 parts.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get into the 2-minute section. Chad, you're up first with Wild Wild West.
Look, I mean, I actually disagree with you a little bit. I also watched Cop Out. You know, I'd seen it a long time ago. I rewatched it fresh for this, and no, it's not a good movie. It's not that fun. But the biggest thing that I actually really do like about the movie is Tracy Morgan. I think Tracy Morgan like works in every movie that he's done. He works in 30 Rock quite a bit. You know, just every line delivery that he has. Even if it's the dumbest thing you've ever heard, the way he says it is just hilarious. And I just think if you take Tracy Morgan out of Cop Out, you're kind of robbing the movie. I don't think that that type of material that was written there was, you know, anything that would fit a Ryan Reynolds or anything like that. And even if you wanted to remake Cop Out like later, I don't think anybody would want to see that, because the things that people want to see Cop Out for, Kevin Smith directing, Tracy Morgan and Bruce Willis. And yeah, I don't think Bruce Willis works in there. I wouldn't if you want to recast him, that's fine. But I wouldn't want to replace Tracy Morgan at all. If you want to put Ryan Reynolds in that movie, I don't know why he would want to be in that movie specifically, because it really doesn't fit his style. I would maybe put him in as like the Sean William Scott type of character, because he also doesn't really work in that movie. And that's why, like, you know, he stayed in the 2000s and did not move on. But yeah, Wild Wild West was adapted from a television show called The Wild Wild West. And I think the movie could actually, if it was made today, could be called The Wild Wild West, like how we have the Suicide Squad. And I think, Ryan's brand of meta humor could be really funny. If it was made today, then he could joke about, Will Smith slapping people, the original Wild Wild West, Kenneth Branagh winning his first Academy Award. If it's made back in the day, he can still just joke about meta stuff that's like, Western, sci-fi, spy films. Hugh Jackman's played dual roles like in The Prestige, so we can see him have that really fun thing. And he also knows how to sing, so he can like go and just like be like this really kind of like flamboyant presence and have fun. And he also has that smart ass sense of humor, which is great.
All right. And since Chris continues to want to be right, yes, they are technically in X-Men Origins Wolverine, although I don't make it a habit of remembering bad films. Speaking of bad films, we heard about one. Alan, tell me about another. Time's up when you start.
Well, I'm going to say that Wild Wild West, to me, isn't that really a bad movie. It's quirky and it's weird, but you've got Barry Sonnenfeld, who that's what he does. He makes quirky, weird movies, and he's done it really well with Will Smith and other films. And I really think their performance is pretty good. And I'll be honest, I love Kenneth Branagh in that movie. I really love him. I think he's a fantastic villain. He's great. Yeah. So I think replacing him now, Kevin Kline. No, you don't. Maybe Kenneth not Branagh. His stuff. No. I'm talking about with Kevin Kline. I think him and Will Smith worked well enough together. The biggest problem with Cop Out is that they didn't work well together. Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan didn't want to do anything together at all. And that was largely because of Bruce Willis. I mean, Tracy Morgan, you said that Tracy Morgan was really good in Cop Out. Well, because he's really actually very good in everything. Tracy Morgan's a pro, and he's very, very funny, always. But I think him and Bruce Willis just did that. I mean, it was oil and water. They did not want to be there around each other. And as much as they could try, as Tracy Morgan was trying to ad-lib things, Bruce always felt that he was competing with him, and he didn't want to do that. So he sandbagged the whole thing. And I think Kevin Smith wasn't strong enough a director to direct somebody who didn't want to be there. So that's why I think the film suffered overall, because of that very reason, those two people not want to play nice with each other. And I've still got more time. I have that I think, right? I'm still 2 minutes. Okay, good. Sorry. I lost my train of thought there for a second. But I think with Wild Wild West, really that formula worked very well for what it was. A really silly, weird, quirky. I love all of the cyberpunk kind of stuff that was going on in that film. And the two leads worked well enough together that I think with Ryan Reynolds, and you talked about him adding references, I think if you put too much references and too much in a film, it dates it. It has a trouble with dating it. I think that's one of the pitfalls of Ryan Reynolds is he dates himself with a lot of the references that he uses as meta references. So maybe it was well enough on its own. Wild Wild West is pretty good on its own. No changes.
And time. All right, we're going to go ahead and get into the 4-minute open discussion, guys. Time starts when the first competitor speaks.
Well, first I'll jump in there and I'll apologize. I forgot that was his 2-minute, and I was thinking it was the 4-minute. So I was like,
and I think that's what messed me up
why
too.
am I muted? Anyways, no, I would definitely not replace Kenneth Branagh. I do agree. I think there's a lot that does work in Wild Wild West, and that's why I think it should be remade, because it could be even better. There is a lot of really weird stuff that happens in that movie, and I love the kind of like scripts that they had. That's why I think if you replace the actors, it could be phenomenal. It could be one of the best movies that everyone, not just Alan Shepard, thinks is really good. But really, I think Cop Out just doesn't work on so many levels. Like, there's really not much to that movie. Like, there's really barely a story there. If you wanted to remake it, like, it's just like, oh, he wants to get a baseball card back so that he can pay for his daughter's wedding. Wait, that's the story. There's not really much there.
I mean, it's a buddy cop film, and we've had, numbers and numbers of examples of working buddy cop films, but the success on a buddy cop film depends on your two leads. And it depends on the relationship they create. That's why you're there. The formulas of all buddy cop films are pretty much the same, but we're there to see the two leads, these two characters together, and if they don't want to be there, then it's going to ruin everything.
But I don't,
we really haven't seen Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman through a whole film, carry a whole film together in those opposing roles, the straight man and the funny man, or the quick-witted guy versus the tough as nails guy. And I think they would be perfect and elevate that movie, to something that would be maybe considered a classic, because it was R-rated. If you've still got an R-rated thing, we haven't seen a buddy cop R-rated film in a while. I mean, there's been some, but we haven't seen a good one in a while where the two actors could really elevate the entire film. Because really, that's what you're watching.
But there's not that much. Like, if you want like a really good buddy cop film, like we've seen, you have The Nice Guys. You have a lot of movies that are coming out. They have actors that worked really well together, like Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. But there's also a great story there. There's something there. And then there's something also that's like very surprising to see, like Ryan Gosling being funny. And I think that this was an effort to make, I think Tracy Morgan, though, was on fire this movie. Like, he was making me laugh. And I think Bruce Willis was trying a little bit. I don't think that he really totally shit the bed on it, but like, okay. But anyways, going back to Wild Wild West, though, yeah, I do agree with you. There's a lot there that works. There's actual story. There's source material you can pull from to actually like pepper up the script a little bit and make it like really good. You need to take out all of the problematic stuff that lends to the late 90s. If you have Ryan come in there, he can act as like a producer kind of thing, write a little bit of the script and take out all of that problematic stuff. The movie's automatically so much better because you have that foundation of a really good story with Kenneth Branagh trying to come in as the general, kill a bunch of scientists and like kind of make America like secede and, stuff like that and just split it up. And it's really a fun performance from Kenneth Branagh. And there's just so much there that could be made better if you just replace those two actors. I don't think they work that well together, to be honest.
I think it works, but the movie itself works enough. And frankly, it depends on taste, rather. I mean, I really enjoyed Wild Wild West. I actually watched it quite a bit, especially when it was on HBO or one of the two that I just kept watching it. But the question is, what two actors need to be replaced with these two guys that will make the whole movie much, much better and elevate it? What bad movie would be made better, or what movie would be made better? And Cop Out, no question. And you said it yourself, it's kind of a dull drum. Okay, yeah, no real story thing. But these two actors coming into it are going to elevate the whole thing. With Wild Wild West, you've already got a really good stuff anyway. You've got a really fun story. You've got a great villain with a great motive. And it's a decent film by itself.
And it works. But no, Cop Out is not that great of a film, and it's not going to be made better by replacing the actors.
All right. Well, we're going to go in the 1-minute closings. And Chad, you will have the opportunity to continue that point as your closing is up first, or you can start with something new. It's your choice. I don't make that call for you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I mean, I agree with Alan. I think that Wild Wild West does have a lot there that could make it like way better if you just elevate the performances. You can have a lot of over the top stuff with both of these actors. They've been very silly before in times, but also been very grounded as well and given these like deep performances with Will Smith and Kevin Kline. Those guys, well, especially Kevin Kline, you get a lot of problematic humor, just making fun of like women's bodies, just like commenting on it all the time. And just that's the big jokes with the, doing like the boob stuff and like Will Smith coming in, dressing as a girl and stuff to be funny. That stuff is not funny anymore. It wasn't funny then. And, so you get rid of a lot of that stuff by replacing these actors. I think you have a really fun remake of a movie here. But with Cop Out, you can't get rid of Tracy Morgan. It's just not going to be the same movie because Tracy Morgan is that movie. He is hilarious in that movie. He makes all the jokes work, and he makes that movie actually kind of fun to watch, to be honest. So, yeah.
Time. All right, Alan, back over to you for the final minute of the round, sir, when you begin speaking.
I think if you're talking about remaking a film with two different actors, then you want to stay pretty close to what can make this film better. By taking out a lot of the, what you call inappropriate jokes, inappropriate references in Wild Wild West, you're looking at it through a modern lens, a lens of more today rather than when it was made. Because you've got a ton of other movies making fun of women or men in drag and that kind of thing. That was kind of the humor that was going on at the time. If you're going to take all that stuff out, why not just make a different movie? Why not just use Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds to make a different movie and make possibly a better film? If you're going to replace just the actors to make a film that's already done better, then Cop Out is what you have to go with, because it's a kind of okay story, but not that great. But it really would have been elevated with two actors that wanted to be there and could outperform one another, battle that way, and just elevate the entire movie by just replacing those two. And I think with Cop Out, you have to, because one of them clearly didn't want to be there.
All right, guys. Great job once again. This is a great batch between the two of you. I'm going to go ahead and send you both into the back and bring the judges forward. And there's really not a lot to fact check. I think the most subjective thing brought up is the inappropriateness of the jokes. And quite frankly, I just didn't feel like watching clips from Wild Wild West to judge that. So, Sean, I'll go to you first, sir. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point based on what was said?
Can I ask a question about the exact wording of the question? Just because of the way, after hearing the question, they wound up arguing something that was a little bit different. Can you just tell me what the exact wording of the question is?
Yes, the question is, what movie would be made better if it were remade featuring Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman in leading or major supporting roles?
Okay, so I have it written the proper way. I feel like the way the argument wound up going was more so what film would be better if the two of them were in it. So the argument wound up taking place in a different space than the question was actually asked in a lot of different ways. But for me, I felt like Alan hit on a lot of different points in terms of like the dynamic of the buddy cop comedy. That really, really worked for me. The fact that makes or breaks what makes a buddy cop film work. But not just that, when he got to, if you're looking at it from the lens of where we're at in modern day, why wouldn't you just make a completely different film as opposed to the film that was made before? That also works. So I'd give my point to Alan, but yeah, I could see if someone can argue differently. But yeah, for me personally, I felt like Alan made the stronger argument.
All right, so our first vote goes to Alan. Brian, down to you. Who gets your vote, and what soldier?
This is a great round. My pick is going to go Chadwick. He knocked down about how Wild West be much better as it was with Hugh Jackman, and he said that he knocked down the points about how there's so many buddy cop comedies, and what Sorry was the debate round for Chad. So Chad gets my pick.
All right, so it is a 1-1 vote, which means, Chris, I go to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, it's going with Chad's. Like maybe everything Brian said, Chad just pulled out during the debate round to the end.
All right, Judges, thank you guys so much. I'll go ahead and sit you in the back as we move on to the fourth question of the game.
I'm right there with. By the way, I'm right there with Sean. That was a very confusing question. I actually, was. I had to like kind of pivot mid question, mid talk. I was like, "What are we arguing here?"
Well, it worked for you. It worked for you. Congratulations, brother. Good work.
Make note, Chad attacks question writer, set up the
Anyway, I'm sure the question writer, Will, is great at writing questions, but it was just maybe worded a little,
We're going to move on to the fourth and final question of this round, which is based on a few weeks ago. We had the latest in what has been a running trend in the last few years of Hollywood, which is Stephen King adaptations or Stephen King remakes, as the Zac Efron-led film Firestarter was released into theaters. It's also available on Peacock for those of you who have Peacock, the 10 of you out there. But it is in theaters for people to watch, and Stephen King has been on the rise in terms of popularity, whether it's the blockbuster success of the It films or the things that someone like, I knew his name like 30 seconds ago. What the fuck is that? It's Mike something. The guy who did Dr. Sleep.
Mike Flanagan.
Thank you. Yeah, Mike Flanagan. Yeah. God. Thank God I'm not the one debating. Mike Flanagan and the stuff that he's done over the last few years. Stephen King has become a big part of the zeitgeist. And on the heels of Firestarter's release a few weeks ago, the question here is, what is the best film based off of a Stephen King book or short story? So there's a lot to choose from, because as I said, it's been a real modern renaissance in the last few years, but there's also all the classics that we're seeing being remade now. There's also the really weird TV miniseries that Stephen King himself produced. Those aren't eligible because they're not actual movies. But man, there's some weird ones if you want to go check those out. But with that said, let's get into it. And Alan, you are up first, sir. So I will bring up the timer that honestly looks like it could be the set of Firestarter, and you can begin speaking when ready.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I had no idea that Firestarter, the remake, was even happening until I saw Doctor Strange Thursday night and went, oh, wow, okay, cool. So I'll trailer for it. Now, I went very personal with this one because there are so many really, really good Stephen King adaptations, and there are a lot of really, really terrible ones as well. So I went personal with this. I went, what is my favorite? What is Alan's favorite? And I went with John Carpenter's Christine. I absolutely adore this film. I'm a huge John Carpenter fan. I'm a big Stephen King fan, but I'm a huge John Carpenter fan. And I think Christine is just a little story that could. I think it's a beautifully directed movie. The music complements it so well. The editing, the acting, everything about it, the special effects. There's some moments that will haunt my brain forever and constantly stay in my mind when I hear certain sounds. And it all goes back to Christine. So I chose John Carpenter's Christine, my personal favorite Stephen King adaptation. And I'll concede my 1 second there.
And that will be time. Chad, over to you, sir. Opening minute.
I also am a huge Stephen King and John Carpenter fan. Just want to throw that out there. Alan, great choices. But yeah, Stephen King is definitely one of the greatest writers of all time. He has given the world so many great horrific stories. Most of his stories feature some sort of supernatural entity, but not always. Some of his stories also try to analyze the human condition. What is it to lose all hope in such a dark place, whether it is in a literal prison or in our own minds? What if we refuse to allow despair to take hold of us, and instead we hold out on hope that we can achieve redemption in our lives? Of course, I am talking about the Academy Award nominated film for Best Picture in 1994, The Shawshank Redemption. Not only was Shawshank the best film of 1994, my humble opinion, but it is one of the greatest films ever made and one of my favorites of all time. Brilliantly directed by Frank Darabont, this little novella was adapted into one of the greatest stories of human triumph. You can show Shawshank to anybody universally, and they can feel moved to not give up when everything seems lost.
And time. All right. So it is Christine versus Shawshank Redemption. I don't think we could get much further on the spectrum of King. But Alan, I go back to you for Christine. 2 minutes on the clock, sir.
But there's no doubt Shawshank is one of the greatest movies of all time. It's one of my personal favorites as well. But Christine just kind of hit me on a different note. It's a smaller film in scale. It's a smaller film in story. Very focused on adolescence and how adolescence attacks you, how you change through it, and the power and the terror of what could happen to somebody when they get caught up in an obsession. And we get a lot of different obsessions. Really, obsession starts to come around in fruition during adolescence. And with Arnie and that car, and what is it? It's an allegory for so many things. Him going through puberty, him going through what is love, him becoming independent, him not wanting to be held down by all these things that we can relate to universally. I think everybody can relate to adolescence and going through that. And how do we strive to become our own person? And him discovering that through this car that just so happens to be evil, and it feeds upon that freedom that they're craving, that they need, that they desire. And I think it's a really, really beautifully told story. It's very economic in its runtime. It's very economic in its scale. Doesn't waste a lot of time with superfluous things. It's just, this is the story of this guy, what he's going through, the struggles with adolescence, the struggle with being independent, and gaining notoriety, and what that can do, the dark side of that, when you let it take hold of you, how it could pull you and ultimately end you. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful story in that way, told through this very strange thing with this love of vehicles and cars, and this car that comes to life because it is fed this obsession that happens to Arnie, and then feeds the car so it can begin feed upon another and another and another, and this endless cycle of that obsession and how it can destroy your individuality. I think it's a really beautiful story.
And time. All right, Chad, back over to you, sir, when you begin speaking.
I love the passion from Alan yet again on a movie he loves. Christine is a good King adaptation. I like to say, boy loves car, car possesses boy. I just wish they could have spent some more time developing some of the relationships in the movie. So when Arnie attacks his dad, it has more weight to it. And when you see the tragic downfall of Arnie, you actually feel for him more as a character. Maybe Alan felt that a little more than I did. But there's some poor acting also from the bullies a little bit. The garage owner just says fuck all the time, and it's kind of cringe. It's not really good dialogue. It's like they just extrapolated some dialogue straight from the book, and it's like they didn't really spend time trying to make it cinematic and stuff. Yeah, the car effects are really cool, but I wouldn't expect anything less from John Carpenter. But I also expected more from him. Remember, this is the guy that made The Thing. You had some descriptions in the book of Christine, where Christine is this monstrous being, like entity with like hair and skin, and it's really gross. I feel like John Carpenter could have actually brought that to the screen, and I feel like it kind of like fails in that a little bit. Well, I mean, it does have some good effects, I will say. But yeah, so I think that also speaks to the nature of adapting a King horror story, is that something really always gets lost on the screen, because King is so great at just like describing a lot of these macabre scenes and a lot of these macabre entities and things that he creates. But yeah, Shawshank has been the #1 ranked film on IMDb for a very long time. The film has been consistently loved by people ever since it came out. People have been angry that it lost to Forrest Gump. It has something to say, as I mentioned earlier. It is infinitely rewatchable, even when you know what happens, because it is shot so well, acted so well, and has dialogue that will floor you. Not to mention that fucking score. Holy shit, dude. So soft and so serene. This score will make you feel at peace, even though sometimes things that happen in the prison are brutal. That contrast between the undying hope and will to keep going against the brutality of the system will always will hook you in. Taking straight patches from the book and making it like Red's narration, I thought was a brilliant choice.
And time. All right, we're going to get into the 4-minute open discussion, gentlemen. The timer will start when the first person speaks.
All right, this is going to be hard, Chad, because you cheated. You used a brilliant movie, an excellent movie, an amazing movie. Everything you said about it, sir, is very true. You're not going to lie. It's amazing. I love me some Shawshank, no joke. So when I first saw you pick this, I went, shit, I lost. But I will say this. The reason I was talking about the time, the efficient use of time, what John Carpenter is very, very good at when in his better films, is he doesn't waste any time. He only tells the story that he has to tell. And with Christine, I think it's told very well in a very succinct time. The only downfall I'll give to Shawshank is it gets a little bit esoteric at times and feels the weight of itself in trying to push that. This story is way more important than it even needs to be, and look how profound we are. That's the only ding I'll give it, but I think Christine wins in that sense, that it doesn't try to do that. It doesn't try to overstay its welcome, or doesn't try to say, look how important I am. And I think that's the one thing Shawshank does, is it pushes a little bit how important and esoteric and beautiful and amazing I am, instead of just telling the story more economically.
See, I think that's just kind of like an after effect, because the movie's been lauded so much by a lot of people that you kind of see a lot of the, like you use the word esoteric, just a lot of the self-importance of it. I don't think it's self-important at all. I think this is just a brilliantly adapted movie from a great novella. A short novella that they expanded and just made into, it's not overly long. I would argue as well, this movie, every little part is needed. It builds up all the side characters. It makes you, like, some of the sequences in this film, like when he plays the record player, it's just so beautiful. And you get to see that character of Andy Dufresne, just like his, he will not be pushed down, but he doesn't do it in this like over the top, like yelling kind of way. It's just his like inner spirit. The way he talks about hope to Red, the way he talks about music, they can't ever take that away from you. There's just so much great, fantastic dialogue. The way they have Red go in for all the different little, sessions where he might get parole and he doesn't. And then when he finally gets there and all of this, stuff that Andy's taught him to be, challenge the system and stuff, he goes and he goes, I don't give a shit about your parole. And that's when he finally gets out.
I think it's more the point of, it's just a lot of flowery language and a little bit overwritten. With Darabont and a lot of his films and his screenplays, he overwrites just a little bit. I think a lot of and you even brought forth that you enjoyed the narration with Red and some of the passages directly from the short story. I think some of them carry on a little too much. I think like one of the best characters, well, I think him over-explaining. We kind of see it, and then he explains what just happened.
Well,
a little bit, and a little bit where. Yeah,
well, I just
sorry, go ahead.
Say that, no, it's okay. I just want to say that I love the hook, though, that they bring in, and they say, like, when Andy Dufresne came in and, he's asked for Rita Hayworth, I was like, okay, I'll get it for you. But, I don't know word for word, but like, I just love how they do bring that in. That's the brilliance of King's writing, that they adapted. I love that they took that and they were like, no, we're going to hook them in by telling them something about Andy Dufresne and then showing you who Andy Dufresne is. I don't think it overly explains anything.
I think it does just a little bit in the difference of show and tell. With Brooks, I think the character of Brooks, we understand so much about him. It's brilliant, but it's a lot of show and not tell. And that's goes forth to the director. And we're watching a film. We're not listening to an audiobook. We're watching a film. And I think, again, Shawshank had a little bit too much of the flowery narration. With Christine, you've got the one moment where he's standing in front of the beat up car and we understand it's alive, with just him going, show me. Then the headlights come on and that tells you everything you need to know about what's coming forth. And I love it.
All right. Well, Alan, you can continue the end of that sentence because you were up first for the closing, sir. You got 1 minute on the clock when you're ready.
Yeah, I think, again, in film, we're talking about films, so, the flowery nature of the narration, the over exploration of explanation of certain things in Shawshank it's, again, the one downfall of it. It's a brilliant film, absolutely amazing. But I think if there's one downfall, it is that over explanation through the excessive narration. With Christine, you've got that one moment that the filmmaker, John Carpenter, is telling us all we need to know after the devastation that Arnie comes in, sees Christine beat to death. He's worked so hard to try to revitalize this thing that he loves, and you really see the obsession with okay, now this obsession, this pride he's taking in making this thing is now destroyed, and it's turning very dark by him simply asking this vehicle, why would this car be able to show him or talk to him or let him know? And as soon as he says it, the headlights come on, the brilliant sound that I'll never leave my mind, and then the car rebuilds itself, and you see this dark thing, which should be a prideful
And
thing,
time.
turn evil.
All right, Chad, you got the last minute of the round, sir. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I love Alan's passion for this movie. I really think the book is just so much better than the movie. I thought it could have been so much better. I really wanted to see this. I was excited I did, and Alan picked it because I wanted to check this one out. But it just doesn't have the same kind of gravitas that like The Thing or Halloween does. And unfortunately, it's sandwiched in between them, and it's just really not that talked about. And I think it's for a good reason, because I just don't think it's like that great of a movie. It's fun. There's some cool effects, but it's just really not that great of a movie, to be honest. I think they could have focused more on character and story than just like the cool car effects and the sounds and stuff. But yes, Shawshank, definitely one of the greatest films ever made. I love this movie. I adore this movie. The warden is one of the greatest villains in all of film history. Just when he locks away Andy Dufresne, just for calling him obtuse, but his biggest fear is being locked up by the people that he lords over. Just so brilliant. And I don't think there's any flowery language, or if it is, it's amazing. And there's no waste in this film at all. It's brilliantly written.
And time. All right, guys, another excellent round there. I'm going to go ahead and sit you both in the back and bring in our judges for this round. So the only real fact check, because they pretty much nailed everything that they said, but in terms of the IMDb top 250, The Shawshank Redemption is ranked number 1. I don't know what defines it as number 1. I don't know if like IMDb themselves keep decimals that go past the 0.1 slot. But it is technically tied at 9.2 with The Godfather. It seems like Sean knows, so please enlighten me, because I actually don't know.
The only reason why it's above The Godfather is because there's actually, if I'm not mistaken, there are more rankings for The Shawshank Redemption.
That would make sense.
In terms of it being a 10.
That would make sense. So yes, The Shawshank Redemption is listed as the number 1 on IMDb. It is also one of only 4 movies to receive over a 9 out of 10 score, with the other 3 being The Godfather Part 2, and Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. I was also curious to see, because we are in an era where all of these films are getting remade. Are either of these films getting remade? At the moment, it does not seem like anyone is going to be doing anything related to The Shawshank Redemption. However, about a year ago now, at this point, it was announced that in an agreement between Sony Pictures and Blumhouse Productions, who are the same studio that are working on Firestarter, a film remake of Christine would be put into development. It would be the film directorial debut and screenplay debut of Brian Fuller, who is best known for his writing and showrunning work on shows like Hannibal, American Gods, and prior to that, things like Heroes and Star Trek. So he will be taking over that film. Since the announcement, there's been no updates, but it is something that is coming. So if you enjoyed Firestarter, maybe you'll enjoy their remake of Christine down the road too. But with that said, Brian, I go over to you first, sir. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
For me, Chad Body, he talked a lot about his pick, and with Alan didn't really talk that much about Christine. So Chadwick gets my point on this round.
Okay, so the first vote goes to Chad. Chris, I go to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the selling point?
It may be the opposite. I thought Alan just used more example for Christine. I heard a little bit more from him. But yeah, Alan won. Yeah.
Okay, so it is a 1-to-1 vote, which means, Sean, I do go over to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Okay. I definitely was not expecting that. I would more than likely go with Chad on this one. And the reason for that is just he wound up attacking some of the points when it came to the flowery language argument that Alan made. And on top of that, he made some stellar points about arguably what is the greatest film of all time. I think Alan made a great argument though. But yeah, I'd more than likely go with Chadwick. Yeah.
All right. Well, judges, thank you guys so much. I'm going to go ahead and sit you guys in the back because winner by a final score of 3-1, it is Chad Webb coming in with the big victory. And congratulations, sir, for pulling out that big victory. I know it's something that you've wanted for a while to get to that higher up place in this league. And considering the level that Alan brought in those first couple of matches, you certainly have taken down a top contender. How are you feeling after this?
Oh, I mean, I feel great. Going up against Alan like that, having the performance that I did against the performance that he did. I mean, what can I say really? Like that, it was such a like neck and neck. I feel like the whole time. I feel like the only time, that he kind of didn't really fight that hard was that last round because he admittedly loved the movie that I picked, and but he had so much passion for his movie. I think if he would have just hit my movie a little bit more, which he did have some points, but I feel like if he would have did that, then this would be onto the blind round again. And I don't want to say he threw it so he didn't have to go to the blind round, but I know Alan is a great competitor, and going up against him, I didn't know if I was going to be 4-1 or 3-2. And, he had me up against the ropes quite a bit in this, where I thought like, I got that Harry Potter one down because I'm like big Harry Potter guy. I don't know how big Alan is with all that. And I got all these, and then Alan was like, I was like, shit, those are good points that he's making. Oh my God. So, and then, not really understanding the third question that much. Next time I'm just going to ask for a little bit of a clarification. That one was a little messy. And then, I kind of messed up too when I was talking over Alan during his 2-point. I feel so stupid about that.
Hey, it's all right. It's only your 5th match. It happens to everybody. But you are moving on now to a number 1 contenders match, and the player that you are taking on is no slouch, because the guy that you are taking on is somebody who at the end of the tournaments I deemed easily the most impressive rookie, because he was the only rookie to make it to a tournament final. And considering you are still technically a rookie, you're not only playing him for a title shot, you're kind of playing him for that title. Your next opponent will be Shaun Hunter, who goes into that match at a 4-2 record with 2 knockouts. How do you feel about that matchup? Because it's a very different matchup from Alan, I would say, in terms of approach, but also the stakes that are on it now.
Yeah, Shaun Hunter will drill you into the ground. He has a point he's trying to make, and he's going to make it, whether he has to go through you or whatever. But yeah, dude writes on plates. He might smash that plate over his head if he gets angry enough and trying to like drill through me. So I gotta not let that happen. Great competitor. I've watched all of his matches. I love all the approaches he takes. It's really fun. So I'm still gonna try to have fun. Definitely not that like awesome, like chill Hawaiian vibe that Alan brings to everything that just like kind of makes you have fun. Not saying I won't have fun with Shaun, but like I know it's gonna be like, I'm gonna bring it up. Austin, he was like that competitor that just made me sweat, I feel like, the most. It's gonna be another one of those types of matches. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to bring it, and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely, man. Well, that takes place just about a month from now, so I will see you at that point in time. Best of luck to you, and congratulations on tonight.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and set you in the back and bring in Dr. Spaceman, Alan Shepard. Alan, honestly, he could say all he likes that you threw it, because honestly, it makes his win look cheaper, but I wouldn't say that you threw it. I think you brought the passion, but you did avoid the blind round, so I will also give you a congratulations, sir. How are you feeling after this?
Actually pretty good. No blind round. Hey, there we go. I never throw anything. It's all about having fun and bringing that passion. Chad had a lot of passion too, and he prepped, man. That's what I love about Chad. He preps stuff, man, and he knows his stuff. He knows everything about his argument and the films that he's arguing, and that's what I love about him. I can't say I lost this. It's just he pulled out the victory because he was prepped, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. The judges, they got their opinions. Whoever they sway by them, they do that. So lots of fun. I love it. I'm glad I didn't get to the blind round this time. I'll be honest with you. We'll see what happens next time because, I got knocked down, but I ain't out yet. I definitely want to come back and do this some more because it's just so much fun.
Absolutely, man. And I'm not going to keep your time because, as we all know, if anyone knows Alan, you know that he's on a very different time zone. So while we're all getting ready to go to bed, he's got a child's baseball game. So I will allow you to go enjoy that. Hopefully they don't, get a RBI, hit a base. I don't know baseball, but hopefully they do good.
Right on.
We'll see you next time, sir. We'll get you back in here and
right.
have some more fun. Thank you.
All right. Aloha, guys. Mahalo. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, and that is another movie battleground match in the books between Alan Shepard and Chad Webb. Congratulations to Chad on a very good victory that will see him move into a number one contenders match that will take place in June. But we are not quite finished yet as we are on the cusp of June. Now, his match will come just a little later in the month. But we do have a couple of matches heading up before then. Next week, we have 3 matches going up on the channel, so be sure to tune in and check those out. The first of those matches is a debuting match between Alejandro Hernandez, who has already participated in one of our exhibition matches, making his official debut, and he will be taking on Zachary Shelton, someone who's been on the waiting list for a while to try and get in here. Opportunity struck, and he will take that chance to get into the game. The second match of this week will be Jacob Barber versus Jake Reese, both competitors who are 0-2 and 0-3 respectively, looking to get that first win. And then somebody who Chad just referenced is a tough opponent, but his record doesn't quite show it. We have Austin Howell coming back against Papa West. Both of them are 1-2. Papa comes off a knockout victory. Who can get that second win and push themselves back closer to where they feel they deserve to be? So 3 great matches next week. Please be sure to tune in and check them out. I want to thank our 3 great judges who are with us tonight in Chris Diaz, Sean Sandberg, and Brian Nussbaum. Thank you guys for being here and helping out with the show, helping it run smoothly. Shout out once again to Alan Shepard for just always bringing the good times, and congratulations to Chad for his win. I look forward to seeing him in that match against Shaun. It's sure to be a hell of a one. With that said, though, guys, my name is Aaron Knoll, and on behalf of everyone here at Movie Battleground, we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.